Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Neutral Game, your resident fighting game podcast. I am Six of Scanlane Media, and I'm joined as ever by Miodrag.
Hello, I am Miodrag of Real Soviet Bear Inc. I don't even know what my channel's called.
We could do it right here, right now. Give it a name, official name.
I mean, it's my name, but it's not like an official incorporated corporation name, so let's just call it Bear Media for now.
Okay, and we don't have time to file the paperwork right now. That makes sense. Okay. What are we talking about this week, Mio?
Well, this week we're talking about how I started teaching, or rather, people in my office picked up Guilty Gear, and we started playing it during lunch breaks, as in my regular offline fighting game group picked up Guilty Gear all of a sudden, and how that process went for people who don't usually play anime fighters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are people that you've been playing other like fighting games, but so they're not new to fighting games in general, but it's anime ones that they're new to.
Yeah, so we started. I think the group started playing. There was attempted playing Street Fighter V. But only one person really enjoyed it, so that ended up being dropped off. And then we played Tekken 7 when it released for like quite a long time until people got tired of it, due to reasons that we talked about on our Tekken 7 episode, actually.
Yeah.
And then Dragon Ball FighterZ released, and everybody, to my surprise, was all, oh yeah, we're getting Dragon Ball FighterZ, everybody wants to play it because it looked really stylish. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't think any of the people involved actually have seen Dragon Ball. So that was kind of weird. We played that for a month? No, actually we played that for 2.5 weeks. Or something like that. And then somebody said, oh yeah, playing this made me want to check out Guilty Gear because it's made by the same team. And they bought Guilty Gear on Steam, and then somebody else bought as a response to Guilty Gear as well, and then a third person bought Guilty Gear, and all of a sudden we were all playing Guilty Gear.
So what made it, instead of just like, hey, I like this game, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I'm curious what else they've made, what made it, instead of just being that full-on transition to Guilty Gear? Like, was Dragon Ball, like, okay, but not going over that well? Or was there something about Guilty Gear that really captured people's imagination?
I think people ended up being overwhelmed by Dragon Ball. Because even though it was kind of simple to play in terms of input, it had a lot of stuff you had to think about at any given time.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, so it was, like, pretty overwhelming in that regard. And also, I think, actually the person who was, well, not doing the worst, but the person who was struggling the most with Dragon Ball was the one who switched to Guilty Gear, and that kind of cascaded.
I see.
And two of us were already playing Guilty Gear, so, we were fine with that. Mm-hmm. And that seemed to have gone better because, I guess it's just like one-on-one is much easier to learn, even though individual Guilty Gear characters are far more complex than any character in Dragon Ball.
I mean, as a player myself who's played, like, I've been playing off and on those sorts of games since Marvel vs. Capcom 2, right? Those sort of like those team, and like ideas like using assists appropriately in combat, like, I still am not very good at that. It's still just an extra element that's hard to keep in my brain. It's harder to handle, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not really good at assist-based games either. I think the only time I'm good with an assist is if it's like a very non-combo-y assist. So, like, thinking off the top of my head, something like maybe Golden Fantasia, the Umineko fighting game, like, where it's not like you get an assist to combo into an assist to combo into an assist. It's more like you just tag in or out, like in wrestling. Mm-hmm. That's the type of like assists I can handle. But as soon as like I have to factor in someone I'm pushing in to maintain the flow, and when my opponent is doing that and I have to protect myself against that, that's just way too many variables for me to handle.
Sure. There are characters though in Guilty Gear that I feel like are as chaotic and complicated in what's going on as Dragon Ball fighters. So like, like I'd add what, Jacko maybe to that list with all the shit she's got going on with like the bases and leveling up and her soldiers and stuff. So like, did people skew away from those kinds of characters with their picks?
So how the picks went is, so me and another person were the only one with Guilty Gear experience, and I went with Venom and Potemkin, which is my standard theme. He went with, his main pick is Leo, but because Leo is very difficult to play against, he started learning a new character, so he switched to Zato. And then the two other people were playing Johnny and Raven. So it's a pretty difficult set of characters to play against, because even though it seems like you're just fighting one person, so it's easier to manage than in Dragon Ball, they require very specific playstyles. So, like, fighting against Zato, for example, is very difficult because of all the setups he has with summoning his secondary character, because it's basically a puppet character. Mm-hmm. So that gets difficult because you have to find where the gaps are, and you have to like keep watching this puppet secondary character, which is always underground. Then with Leo, it's like cross-ups everywhere, so you have to just not get brute forced by that, so that's something to keep in mind. And then I think the only character that wasn't like gimmicky or too difficult to play against was Johnny, but because Johnny is such a technical character, that person who was learning the character didn't utilize him fully, so it ended up, I think, being more complex than Dragon Ball in a lot of ways, but it's more complex in a different way.
I see. So
it's more like this character is a puzzle. How do I figure out how to fight against this specific character, rather than doing a ton of guessing games.
So I'm not the biggest Guilty Gear fan, but I have friends who are, and I hear stuff about it, and it's interesting to me that one of the characters is Raven, because I feel like the most common thing I hear when people are unhappy with Guilty Gear is how much they dislike playing against Raven. And first off, I guess I wonder if you share that opinion, and then if you do, like how you've seen that reflected in the skill curve of a new player.
I despise fighting against that character. It's one of the worst characters to fight against in the game, I'd say. Simply because it's a character that has it's a character that has a lot of very good options, but how can I say this? Okay, for example, when I'm playing against Venom, with Venom against Raven, my job with Venom is to get in, and I have to press my good buttons against Raven to get in. But because Raven is so aggressive in this, like, button versus button warfare, like, Raven's options will always be better than mine. So, like, he has, command grabs that go on the ground and go as an anti-air, which is kind of like, oh, he has the thing that Potemkin has. Then he has a teleport dash, which works like Slayer's, except after he does the first teleport, it turns into a regular dash, so it's better than Slayer's. Then he has like projectiles that are really fast and really tiny, and that slow you when they hit you, so it's like a really good projectile option as well. And then he has like other projectiles which just block a part of the field, because it's like this kind of orb that floats and maintains its position for a while, so it literally denies where you are. And then he has an air dash that does damage, like just an air dash.
So it sounds like there's basically no situation in which you have the advantage.
No, there isn't. So I actually got really upset playing against him because, I'm not playing with my main character. My old main character in Guilty Gear is Robokai, who still isn't in the game. So, like, Venom and Potemkin are my substitutes. But I still got upset because, I've been playing this game for years, and then this person who, admittedly, they've played, like, a lot of fighting games as well. They just haven't played, like, this type of fighting game. But they got a lot of work with Raven. Like, they got a lot of, results with Raven. So I can't really do anything with Venom because all his responses are better. But then when I switch to Potemkin, who is more of a counterplay character, as in, hey, Potemkin has, like, very hard counters to very different things, so then it boils down to being, good reads, then I have a, brutally easy time. Which is funny, because the person who plays Leo and Zato, Like, if he plays Leo, who is also a very, like, brute force character, the match is super easy in that person's favor. But when they switch to, other characters, it's just an uphill battle.
Yeah, that sounds really frustrating.
Yeah, it's kind of like Raven is this. I won't say he's a simple character. He's just a character with a lot of good options that just break, I think, complex characters. And then if you have like a super super straightforward character like Leo or Potemkin or something like that, then you can just kind of brute force against Raven.
I see.
But it's not an enjoyable thing. I think like everybody, it's kind of like I don't want like anybody to switch their characters, and in the end, I'm always like, okay, well, I'll just learn to play against this very difficult character, but it's still like killing a lot of my enjoyment. So yeah, he is really bad. I really hope they like tone him down.
I mean, was he added with Rev 2 or?
Yes, he was added with Rev 2.
Okay, so
he's not. No, he was added with the Rev, not Rev 2. Sorry, Rev 2 was by Can and Answer.
So he's been around for long enough that it seems like maybe they're not going to change that.
Well, they're not gonna he had a patch where they like changed things up for him, but he's still like pretty powerful. And I don't really know what the design philosophy of Team Red is, like the Arc System dev team that did this, because years ago, I think they were quoted as saying that they're fine with certain characters being more powerful than others because they believe some people find enjoyment in playing low tier characters and getting results, plus matchup experience balances it all out.
Sure.
So I don't really know what they'll do with like Raven. Probably nothing major until Evo.
That makes sense. Okay. So you talked a little bit about the different experience and backgrounds that people have had going into this. Like the Raven player has a fair bit of general fighting game experience going into this. So like, what are the different backgrounds that people have, and how have you seen that sort of reflected in their play, do you think?
So the person who plays Zato and Leo, he basically plays the same way, fighting games the same way I do. He just, plays whichever fighting game. So he's more like Marvel oriented than I am, so he's had more experience with Marvel games, but he's pretty much played as many things as I have. So for him, I think it's like, I guess it's like it's very difficult to describe like his play style. I think it's mostly like he looks up what the best options and setups for certain characters are, but he doesn't find it problematic to adapt and figure out some of his own things.
I mean, like as a person, from the outside, hearing a person who plays Zato 1 and Leo, my assumption is, this is a person who's interested in oppressive pressure.
Yes. But also he like in all fighting games we've played, he frequently swaps out characters. So like he'll play a character for a week or two, and then be like, oh, I'm like either bored of this character or I want something new. So they dabble in a bit of everything. I think they're like a fairly open-minded player, and that kind of reflects in them adapting to losing. Like when they lose enough to a certain thing, they will adapt to it. Then as far as the Johnny player who's now switching back to Answer, they don't play like fighting games. I think like they tried playing Street Fighter because they were roped into it and they thought it was really boring. And then they played Tekken quite a while and got really into it. But otherwise they're a Dota player. So it's kind of like I think they enjoy fighting games. I think they also just get really frustrated with them. But the how that kind of like reflects in their style is they figure out they take a while to like figure out all the tools they have. I'd say like it takes them a while to have everything in the rotation that their character can do. But the basic things like normals and stuff like that, spacing, they're pretty good with that. So like the fundamentals of a character, I think they understand. It's more just putting in all the options there.
Yeah, not so much with the missed finder setups yet.
Yeah. And then the Raven player is I think they played a lot of stuff. They just didn't play hardcore anime super fast fighting games. So they played Street Fighter. I think they played Soul Calibur back in the day. They played Tekken. They played Dragon Ball as all of us. Now they're playing Guilty Gear, and I think they're wanting to try Unil now as well because they want a fighting game that none of us have experience with.
Yeah, I picked up Unil this year, and that was part of what was a big motivating factor for me, is that there was a friend who's been on the show, Harry, who I play fighting games with a lot, and Harry was like, let's start a fighting game that neither of us know, and let's start it together. And Unil was great for that.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried a bit of Unil, so it's not like I don't know it, but it's, I played it for 2 weeks, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's all gone in the ether now.
Yeah, for
all
sure.
All the knowledge.
So since you have such a diverse set of backgrounds and histories with fighting games, including someone who barely played, how's it going? How's the learning going? What are the challenges and such?
So I think for Guilty Gear particularly, the biggest challenge was people understanding how to do throws. I'd say, which when I realized that people were struggling with, I kind of started brute forcing throws and just throwing people at every single opportunity until they figured it out. And a lot of them did figure it out. We went from me doing 6 to 7 throws in a round to me landing 2. If somebody's on tilt, then they go back to a few more. But in general, now people are falling less for that and learning how to actually utilize it themselves. Which is, I guess, I'd make sense that that would be a big speed bump in the learning process, because the throws in Guilty Gear are essentially, you're next to a person, you press heavy / plus forward or backward, and then you throw them. But you have to do that from a neutral state, not while dashing or in the middle of a combo or another move or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest struggle was that people didn't understand. I guess it's maybe in Street Fighter it's different, I don't know.
I mean, in Street Fighter it's a contextual input. You hit the input, you're always going to get throw. It's not like in some situations you'll get an attack instead. I think that's the confusion.
Yeah, but I think it's also, they had a hard time understanding that, if you're next to a person and that person wakes up, stands up from the ground, they have priority of throwing you. So they didn't understand that, if you're standing next to someone that's waking up, you're gonna get thrown. Mm-hmm. And for me, that wasn't, I guess, I never realized that was a weird thing, because because I started with Guilty Gear, I just always assumed, that's not a thing you do.
I mean, this is my first time hearing it. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, because essentially what will happen, that's why when in Guilty Gear, when you're next to somebody, what you do is you jump upwards, so that when they try to throw you on their wake up, they'll miss and a regular move will come out, and then as they're landing back, you punish them.
Yeah,
but also then when the person expects that, they jump after you and air grab you instead, or do something else.
I see.
So it's kind of like this, the first step is not standing next to a person to get thrown, but then after that comes the bluffing part where, you might trick someone thinking that you're going to do a safe jump, but you actually don't need to do something else.
I see.
That was I guess a bit confusing. People picked up the Roman cancel quite quickly. That I was surprised by that. Because for me that was always one of the more complex things in Guilty Gear, but I guess because it's so toned down in the latest one, Roman cancel being spend meter to cancel or a move on startup or during a combo. Mm-hmm. Or during recovery even. So people kind of picked up on that. And I guess beyond that, people really haven't had struggle. It all boils down to now matchup experience and just learning how to play against the other person. Because one of them said that the thing they liked about Guilty Gear is that everybody has the same defensive options. So it's kind of defense is universal and everybody has strong defense options, even though the game is so aggressive. So it's kind of easier for them to wrap their head around like the basics of it. Whereas like with I don't know, like I guess with Dragon Ball it's a bit less transparent. I mean, you have like good options, but defense options like the reflect, but it's like a risky move, and then you have the like Dragon Rush, which is like also a risky move. So like being defensive in Dragon Ball is far riskier.
Yeah. I don't think Dragon Ball rewards defensiveness very much.
No, I mean neither does like Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear has an inherent penalty to if you don't do anything or if you backdash a lot, if you defend a lot for a very long time, it just depletes your meter and you get decreased meter gain for quite a while. So it discourages that as well, but it still has really solid defensive options. I guess now the main struggle is like because they switched back to Potemkin again, like people just trying to learn how to play against the grappler, which I admit is not fun, but I was kind of sick of playing against Raven.
So, do you feel like you guys are going to keep going with Guilty Gear for a while now, or are you going to end up switching again?
I would personally really want to like stay with Guilty Gear because I think like the longer like you play, it's one of those games that like progress is very clear. Like it's very clear to see how better you're getting when you're playing it. And I think it's more interesting when you're playing a game and you improve enough that like the matches become interesting as well. I don't think like low level play is that entertaining because it usually ends up with people flailing until the timer is out. But we will probably try Uniel Under Night in Birth next week, and I am fairly confident people will buy Soul Calibur 6 to play when it comes out, even though I am like out of all the fighting games I've ever played, Soul Calibur is one that I'm like genuinely the worst at. So I'm not even sure what I'm gonna do there.
Get better at it, I guess.
Well, I guess. I mean, before it used to be like Tekken and Soul Calibur were the ones I was the worst at. I was a bit worse at Soul Calibur than at Tekken, but I guess I learned Tekken enough, so I don't know. Maybe if they add a bear to Soul Calibur, it'll be fine.
Maybe. So you guys
probably won't.
Are you guys going to be playing Uniel or Unist, which is the newest version of it?
The newest version of it, the one on the PS4.
Okay. Yeah, that came out earlier this year, and I will probably end up picking it up myself, which is, of course, Under Night in Birth EXE Late Est, because they're very funny.
I hate that name. I hate that name.
I think it's hilarious.
But yeah, I played that for 2 weeks, and one of the things with French bread games that I really appreciate is they are super, super, super complex. Like, high level play of them is ridiculous, but they are very easy to pick up. When I played Melty Blood, like, I was very intimidated by it, but I quickly learned how to be fairly competent when playing. So it's not like they make complex anime fighter games, but I think the entry level is much lower than playing an Arc System game.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, you know, there are easier and harder Arc System games, but still, like, I haven't played any Melty Blood yet. I haven't had anyone to play with yet, though you did get me a copy for my birthday. Thank you. But Uniel has been really really easy to get into. I think really just like you get into it and it just feels good to play.
Yeah, my biggest problem with Uniel is that the character I end up picking is probably the worst character in the game, which somehow keeps happening to me in a lot of these games. But maybe I'll switch to a different character now when we reset.
Who are you playing?
Akatsuki.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, no, okay. A fair assessment then. I was going to be like, he's not that bad, and I was like, oh wait, Akatsuki. Yeah, no, actually.
Akatsuki is, because he's a guest character, they kind of, he literally jumped out of his other game without anything, like, being adapted to him, so you have a very close quarters, short range character in a game with full screen normals. which it's a very uphill battle. It's fun to play him. It's just, ridiculously difficult from what I remember.
Yeah, he gets bopped pretty easily.
Yeah, but oh well. I'm kind of. We should probably talk about guest characters at some point because like a lot of games manage to do that well, but then some just do it like really badly.
Yeah, we'll see. It might be nice to talk about that around the time Soul Calibur 6 comes out and talk about all that. Or actually, we could do it when Cross Tag Battle comes out because I really am going to want to talk about how they adapt like those different casts. That seems like it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to play Cross Tag Battle, though, at the office, so I think my regular group is not too into that. I mean, one of the people, the one I mentioned that plays all sorts of fighting games, anime fighters included, I played BlazBlue with them quite a lot, so, like, they'd be up for it, but I don't think most people would be up for it. Also, it doesn't help that, I guess because we play, during lunch breaks at the middle of the office, like, there's this big projector that basically shows the game so anybody walking by can see it. I'm fairly confident some of the people playing don't actually want to be seen playing something like, BlazBlue.
That's mean.
Because, well, there are some characters, okay?
There are, but they're not really... I'm trying to think if any of them are even in Cross Tag Battle. Like, none of the really gross ones. I don't think they are.
I don't think...
I mean,
they haven't actually...
It's like Mu 12, right? Like, that's one of the ones that it's like,
Yeah, Mu 12. Kokono and Lychee are kind of there.
Yeah, I think Lychee might be in Cross Tag Battle. Kokonoe is not. Pretty sure. Well, anyway.
I mean, it doesn't also help that it's like a really loud game as well.
Indeed.
But yeah, those are probably the things we're gonna like look into. O'Neill and Soul Calibur. I don't know if anything else is coming out. Oh, I guess the SNK Heroines battle, whatever it's called. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty worried about that game. So
I'm very worried. I was like, oh, cool, like a game with some of the like cooler characters of SNK. Oh no, they're giving them costumes.
And that seems to be the focus of the game, and it's...
Yeah, but we'll see. We will see.
Oh, well. So, actually, since we've been talking about Unreal a decent amount, I've been playing a fair bit of Unreal, as I mentioned, with our friend Harry. And I think it's the first time I've had, like, a real fighting game rivalry. And it's been really a really fun experience. I haven't had anything like this. Usually, I come into a game... and either I know the game better than who I'm playing against, or they know it better than me. And it's like, games are taken on either side, but someone is clearly just the better player, right?
Yeah.
And this is my first time where it's really felt pretty even the whole time. We have played 90 matches of our primary matchup. We've played other matches as well, but 90 Gordo versus Hyde games. And, like, if I had to guess, I'm probably up right now. It's probably something like 50-40, but it's pretty close. And on any given night, it's anybody's guess who's going to be in charge. So, it's just really satisfying to get that experience of starting on that even playing field and seeing how, like, you adapt to each other, and then there's the adaptation to the adaptation. I don't know, do you feel like you've had any of these rivalries where you kept playing and were genuinely on an even playing field with the other person?
Oof. That's kind of difficult. Like, there were periods when that happened in some fighting games, but, like, I haven't had that exact experience, sadly, because when I got into BlazBlue, I didn't have the console, so the people I was playing against, had an obvious advantage because they could practice. Mm-hmm. And then when I played Guilty Gear, it was kind of like I always had, like, the slight advantage just because of the, like, game experience.
Yeah.
So I haven't had that yet. Like, I guess, like, yeah, even when I was playing Tekken, it was, like, usually, like, either I'd get floored for a week and then I'd start winning for a week, so it was pretty it was never like, oh, it's always like tense in anybody's game.
Mm-hmm.
It might happen when I pick secondary characters or something like that. Like for example, if I'm picking up a new character and I'm playing with somebody else who's picking up a new character, then yeah, sure. But like me at my best against somebody at their best is usually like, yeah, like you said, in the favor of one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is like the first time where, like, I mean, I don't have a desire to switch characters, right? Like, I mean, you've played with me, and I tend to switch characters fairly consistently. I don't like sticking with the same character for like 5 matches in a row. But like, when Harry and I play, we'll play for like 2, sometimes 3 hours, and it's just like every match is just like, okay, go next, rematch. There's no talk about switching characters. And it's really fun. It's interesting to see sort of how like I'll bust out a move that like I haven't used in like a day or two, and it just sort of changes up the playing field for a bit, and then Harry adapts and starts remembering the weaknesses of that move and punishing me for that. You have rounds where like one of us gets the early advantage, and it's interesting to see how that affects our mental state, because for me, I kind of like I buckle down and get like really focused on trying to figure out a way through it. And Harry just kind of despairs at salvaging the situation. It's interesting to see sort of the, like, even when we're not necessarily getting better, just the way our play styles like change from round to round as an adaptation to each other.
Yeah, that's usually the ideal that you want, because it's the easiest for both parties to improve. I know some people who, that's also kind of like, actually I remember, there were 2 people who I knew who played locally Guilty Gear for a very long time, and they had extremely even matches, like something like literally like something like 50-50, you know, like they'd sit down, play, 50 games, and each one of them would win around like 25, so like it was always really close. And that was within their dynamic. And then one of them started playing online, because that's when the online fan patch for the old Guilty Gear started working. And they just got extremely better. And then when they went back to the other person to play with them, it was just, not even a contest. It was, something like, out of 50 matches played, 40-something in the other person's favor. So it's really good when you have a rivalry, but because it takes 2 people to maintain that rivalry, like if somebody starts playing outside of like that bubble, then the other person needs to do so as well. Because as soon as one person gets a high enough advantage, unless the other person aspires to, close that gap again, then just, deteriorate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't really played outside of Harry and I's matches, and Harry does sometimes do like little combo practice sessions, and I mean that shows right there. Like, but the thing is, I feel like because I have so much more general fighting game experience, it's like when Harry does a practice session, Harry starts out the night strong and is winning usually, and then like and then from there it's a coin flip to who's going to end up winning the night, because then I just adapt. So.
Yeah, I can see that. No, usually my like playstyle in those situations is like what I call the Jean-Claude Van Damme style, which is I need to get beaten up a lot until I come back and am ready to fight back.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
So you've been enjoying Unil, you'd say? Yeah,
I've been enjoying it a lot. I'll definitely, if you end up picking up Unist, I'll definitely pick it up as well. I don't, we're not going to do probably a full episode on Unil unless Unist really captures our imagination. But it's really interesting to, I like characters that are unnecessarily complicated, as sort of a rule. I like Terumi and Susano and BlazBlue. I like Seth in Street Fighter 4. I like these characters who have kind of a little bit too much going on. I like Android 21 in Dragon Ball. And in Unil, I like Hyde. I like the Ryu. And it's like, that's weird, but they've done such a good job of the feel of Unil. Like, all the basic moves and the impact and the flow of the fights feels so good that I want the character that just most directly allows me to get into the fight and get past, like, I feel like I have a tendency to not just want to mind game against my opponent, but also against the systems of the game, and I don't think I need that in Unil.
Yep, sounds about right. No, it's a pretty good game. I definitely, from what I remember, I do recommend people checking it out. And I'll definitely pick up the latest version at some point.
All right, sounds good.
Well, I'd say that's all for today.
Yeah, I think so. Where can people find you on the internet, Miodrag?
So you're gonna find me at twitter.com/mdk Roman numeral 2, so that's mdkii. And you can also follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/realsovietbear.
All right, and you can also join the server, the Real Soviet Bear Cord. I think on your Twitter you should have a link to the proper Bear Discord, which is like streaming talk and fighting games and all sorts of good conversation happening on there.
Yeah, people can join that and if they want to talk fighting games or other things. And where can people find you?
I am at 626... No, I'm not anymore. That's right. Hang on. I am at 6detmar on Twitter. I changed it a little while back, and sometimes I forget. SIXDETTMAR. And I'm on a bunch of podcasts, and I think right now I'll only promote like just the Patreon and the website. So if you go to scanlinemedia.com, you can find most of my writing and a lot of my podcasts. And the ones you can't find there, you can probably find on the Patreon, which is patreon.com/scanlinemedia. And if you want to chip in there, you help us, do more writing, and you could also get access to our patron-only podcast, Oops All Anime, where we talk about anime with a guest. We should get you on sometime, Miodrag. That'd be fun.
Yeah, sure. I like my anime.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to work something out then.
Yeah. Well, see y'all and have a nice month.
Peace out.
This month.
Peace out.
This month.
Peace out.
This month.
Peace out.
This month.